In 1575, a Dutch engraver named Crispin van de Passe sits in his Madrid workshop, copper plate before him, reference texts stacked high. He's illustrating the celestial hierarchy, the 9 choirs of angels that medieval Christianity swears govern reality itself. He reaches the thrones, those bizarre wheel-within-wheels creatures from Ezekiel's fever dream, and finds their leader's name, Zaphkiel. He carves it into metal. The ink settles. The page survives 4.5 centuries. But here's what Van de Passe doesn't know. He's documenting an angel that half of Christendom can't agree exists. Open a dozen grimoires from the same era. Flip to the thrones. Sometimes you get Zaphkiel. Sometimes Zadkiel, sometimes Cassiel, sometimes Zelel. Same job description: watcher of human decisions, guardian of speech under pressure, ruler of Saturn's cold domain. Different name. Zero consensus. This isn't scribal error. This is evidence that the medieval angel economy was running on forked theology, parallel versions of the same spiritual software, each claiming to be the original, none able to prove it. And the weirdest part? Despite 5 centuries of confusion, mistaken identity, and outright theological chaos, Zaphkiel's core function never changes. He watches. He clarifies. From copper engravings to anime weapons to tabletop games, the archetype survives because the need survives. Someone to help you find the right words when everything depends on getting them right. This is the story of an archangel who shouldn't exist according to half the sources that mention him, and yet refuses to disappear. Let's start with the name, because that's where the chaos begins. Zaphkiel, in Hebrew. Zaphkiel, Zaphkiel. Break it down. TSPH, Tsafa, means to watch, to spy, to scout. Kiel, Kiel, is a theophoric suffix meaning of God. Put them together. Watcher of God or God Scout. It's not poetic. It's a job title. This is an angel whose entire identity is surveillance. But medieval scribes working from Greek translations of Hebrew texts via Latin intermediaries start making choices. The TS, tzadi, that sharp T's sound, gets softened. Sometimes it becomes a Z. Sometimes a simple S, the key, kuf, that hard K buried in the name, gets swapped for a D or dropped entirely. Suddenly, you've got Zadkiel, which shares the same planetary rulership and the same choir assignment, but is treated in some grimoires as a completely different angel. Elsewhere, Zaphkiel gets associated so tightly with Saturn that he merges with Cassiel, Saturn's other angelic regent, the angel of solitude and tears. Same planet, same vibes, 2 names, theological chaos. Gustav Davidson's 1967 Dictionary of Angels tries to sort this out and basically throws up its hands. Sometimes equated with Zadkiel, he writes, but other times considered to be a different angel. Translation: the sources can't agree, so pick your angel and commit. This isn't just academic hair-splitting. This is how angel lore actually worked in the medieval and early modern periods. Less like a unified database. More like a wiki anyone could edit, with no admin privileges and 0 rollback function. A scribe in Toledo copies a text. He mishears a name. He writes it down. 300 years later, that version reaches Amsterdam, gets illustrated, gets printed, gets believed. The error becomes canon, and Zaphkiel, or Zadkiel, or Zaphkiel, or Zelel, splinters into parallel identities, all claiming the same throne. So what does this angel actually do? Because despite the name confusion, his function stays razor-sharp across sources. Zaphkiel is chief of the Ophanim, the thrones, the 3rd highest choir in the celestial pecking order. These aren't the humanoid pretty boys of Renaissance art. The Ophanim are wheels within wheels, covered in eyes, burning with fire, spinning in impossible geometries. Ezekiel sees them in chapter 1 and basically short circuits trying to describe them. Their rims were high and awesome, and all 4 rims were full of eyes all around. These are the mechanisms of divine will, the gears that turn the cosmos. And Zaphkiel runs the shop. But he's also something stranger, the angel of deliberation. When you're facing a decision that matters, career, relationship, moral crossroads, Zaphkiel is the celestial presence hovering over your paralysis. Not to make the choice for you, to help you articulate it. The sources say he watches people when they need to make important decisions and when they need to put them into words for others. If you're fumbling for language, if the stakes are high and your brain is static, Zaphkiel is the editor angel who helps you find the sentence that clarifies everything. This is wildly specific. Most archangels get broad portfolios. Michael fights evil, Gabriel delivers messages, Raphael heals. Zaphkiel gets the moment right before you speak the thing that changes your life. That pause where you're searching for the right phrasing because you know you only get one shot. That's his jurisdiction, and it makes perfect sense when you see what planet he governs. Saturn. The slowest, the coldest, the furthest classical planet from the Sun, taking 29 years to complete one orbit. In medieval and Renaissance astrology, Saturn rules time, structure, limits, hard truths. It's the planet of consequences, of delayed gratification, of learning the lesson the universe needed you to learn. Where Jupiter expands, Saturn contracts. Where Venus charms, Saturn demands. It's Father Time with the hourglass and the scythe, the force that turns potential into form, and Zaphkiel owns it. Look at the other archangels' planetary assignments. Michael gets the sun, radiant, central, obvious. Gabriel gets the moon, changeable, mysterious, reflective. Raphael gets Mercury, communication, movement, healing speed. These are bright, active forces. Zaphkiel gets the planet of patience and wait, the planet that forces you to sit with discomfort until you understand why the discomfort exists. This is why he's also linked to Bina in Kabbalistic tradition, the third sephira on the tree of life, representing understanding as opposed to wisdom. Wisdom is the flash of insight. Understanding is the slow, grinding process of integrating that insight into structure. Bina is where divine light solidifies into form, where the infinite becomes finite, where you stop spinning and start building. It's Saturn energy crystallized into mystical architecture, and it's exactly the energy you need when you're frozen in indecision, when the words won't come, when you know the answer is in you somewhere but you can't find it. You don't need inspiration. You need clarity. You need someone to help you carve signal from noise. You need Zaphkiel, the watcher, the editor angel, the celestial force that turns your messy internal scream into a coherent sentence that changes your trajectory. Now, here's where it gets fascinating. That function, watch, wait, clarify, govern time, survives not just across theological confusion, but across media, across centuries, across cultures that have zero contact with Crispin van de Pass's engraving. Jump to 2013. Japan. A light novel series called Date Alive features a character named Kurumi Tokisaki. She wields a spiritual weapon, an angel in the series' terminology. Its name, Zaphkiel. Its form, a massive clock with Roman numerals, golden gears, ornate hands frozen at different positions. Its powers, manipulating time. Bullet 1 rewinds a target's condition, healing wounds by reversing seconds. Bullet 4 sends your consciousness into your past self. Bullet 7 freezes a moment. Bullet 12 peeks into the history of any object it strikes. Look at that power set. It's pure Saturn. Time as structure, time as limitation, time as the medium through which consequences solidify. The anime writers almost certainly didn't consult medieval grimoires. They didn't study Kabbalistic Sephiroth assignments. They didn't trace Zaphkiel's theological pedigree through 15th century engravings. But they nailed the archetype. They looked at the name, intuited the vibe, and gave him a clock, the perfect symbol for the angel who governs deliberation, who watches you linger in the moment before the decision, who helps you understand what time has taught you. This isn't random. This is functional continuity. The same way Michael always gets a sword and Gabriel always gets a trumpet. Zaphkiel gets time-based powers because Saturn never left the equation. Meanwhile, in tabletop gaming, Dungeons & Dragons makes Zaphkiel an archon. a lawful good celestial being, specifically assigned to the Order of Thrones. Exact medieval rank. Exact quar assignment. The game designers plugged the theology directly into the mechanics. You want to summon the guy who rules the wheel angels? That's Zaphkiel. Alignment, lawful good. Portfolio, structure, understanding, contemplation. It's 1575 theology wearing 20-sided dice. But let's go back to that engraving, because there's something hypnotic about its survival. Van de Passe's print shows a figure, humanoid, robed, haloed, standing above geometric representations of wheels. It's not trying for realism, it's trying for diagram. This is celestial org chart art, the kind medieval scholars made when they needed to explain hierarchy, not inspire devotion. These prints weren't devotional images for prayer. They were reference materials for theologians, mystics, magicians trying to map the invisible scaffolding of reality. And Zaphkiel makes it into this schema because by 1575, someone, somewhere, decided the thrones needed a name at the top. Maybe it came from Kabbalistic texts filtering through Spain. Maybe it was a Renaissance magus connecting dots between Hebrew angel lists and Ptolemaic astrology. Maybe it was one scholar's marginal note that got copied into the main text, then copied again, then illustrated, then canon. We don't know. The sources don't agree. What we do know is that once Zaphkiel entered the visual record, once he got a printed image tying him to the thrones and Saturn, he became citable, real enough to reference. And that image ripples forward, through occult grimoires, through esoteric dictionaries, through fantasy bestiaries, through game manuals, through anime production meetings where someone says, "We need a time angel name. What sounds cool and vaguely Judeo-Christian?" And someone Googles angels of time, and Zaphkiel's engraving is right there, 4 centuries old, waiting. Here's the thing that makes this story different from most angel tales. Zaphkiel's existence is contested. He's not in the Bible. He's not in the Quran. He doesn't show up in Enoch or the Book of Tobit. He's a product of late synthesis, Kabbalistic mysticism, meeting Neoplatonic philosophy, meeting medieval astrology, meeting scribal error. He's the angel equivalent of a wiki entry with 3 citation-needed tags. And yet he refuses to vanish, because the function he represents is universal. Every human knows the feeling he governs, the moment when you're standing at the crossroads, when the decision is made internally, but you can't articulate it yet, when you need to find the words that will make others understand what you've decided and why. That paralysis isn't a bug. It's Saturn doing its work, forcing you to understand your own choice before you speak it into existence. Zaphkiel is the angel of that pause. The watcher who doesn't push you, doesn't judge you, just waits with infinite patience while you translate instinct into language. And in a world that fetishizes speed, that hates hesitation, that demands instant answers, that space he governs becomes more valuable, not less. So why does a mostly forgotten angel from contested medieval sources keep showing up in modern fantasy? Because he solves a storytelling problem. If you're writing a game, an anime, a novel, and you need an angelic figure tied to time, structure, and contemplation, not flashy, not militaristic, not healing, but time itself, your options are thin. Father Time isn't an angel. Kronos is Greek, not Abrahamic. Saturn is a Roman god. But Zaphkiel? He's obscure enough that most audiences won't recognize him, specific enough that dedicated fans appreciate the deep cut, and functionally perfect for the role. He's plug-and-play mythology for creators who want Judeo-Christian flavoring without retreading Michael or Gabriel for the 1000th time. And because his theology is contested, because half the sources confuse him with other angels anyway, there's no orthodox version to violate. You can make his clock golden or silver, put Roman numerals or Hebrew letters on it, give him 12 powers or 7 or 3, and you're not wrong, because the sources never agreed in the first place. Zaphkiel is the open-source angel, released under a theological Creative Commons license by medieval scribes who couldn't keep his name straight. That's his superpower. not clarifying speech, not ruling thrones. Narrative flexibility. He's specific enough to feel researched and vague enough to adapt. Let's close on the paradox. An angel that half of angelology says is actually Zaphkiel. An angel some sources merge with Zafiel. An angel whose name gets respelled 6 different ways depending on which grimoire you're holding. An angel who never appears in canonical scripture, whose existence depends entirely on post-biblical synthesis and scribal tradition. And yet, he gets a 1575 engraving that survives in the Spanish National Library. He gets a Dungeons & Dragons stat block. He gets a time-manipulating anime weapon that perfectly mirrors his astrological assignment, despite 0 textual connection. He endures because the archetype endures. The celestial editor, the watcher who helps you find the right words, the force that governs the space between decision and declaration. That's not continuity by design. That's continuity by deep structure. The need Zaphkiel represents, clarity under pressure, deliberation before consequence, understanding time's weight, is so fundamental that once you name it, once you give it a face and a planetary assignment, it keeps resurfacing. Different artists, different media, different centuries, same core function. Maybe that's the real miracle. Not that Zaphkiel exists, but that the question he embodies, how do I put this into words that matter, is so timeless that even a disputed, misspelled, theologically shaky angel can carry it forward across half a millennium. He watches. He waits. He clarifies. The name keeps changing. The job never does. And somewhere in the cold, slow orbit of Saturn, the watcher is still there, hovering over every agonizing pause before you say the thing that changes everything. That's not faith. That's function. And function, it turns out, doesn't need consensus to survive. It just needs to be true enough that when someone reaches for the right symbol, your name, however they spell it, rises to the surface.